Hello everyone. Today I'm going to talk to you about how you can create a Gantt timeline chart using a scatter diagram in Excel. So in essence, what is it you need to create one of these diagrams? You need a series of tasks, and I've already created some data up here. So you need the task names, you need the task start dates, you need the task durations, and the other thing that you're going to need is a vertical position, and this tells your task where it's going to lie on the scatter diagram. I think that's going to become more evident as we go along what the purpose of that value right there is. So to start, what you're going to do is you're going to insert a chart, and you're going to insert a scatter chart. Now what a scatter chart is just an Excel chart that has a series of points on it. And you tell it that point where to lie based on where it is on the horizontal axis and where it is on the vertical axis, right? So right now we've got a scatter chart, but there's nothing on it. So I'm going to right click on that chart and I'm going to select some data. I'm going to add a data series. Now you can divide your tasks up many ways in a project, so like by project team or by phase of activity on the project. Lots of ways you could divide that up. So I'm going to add a series, and I'm going to call that series phase 1 of the project. Like I said, that could be team 1, that could be lots of other things. And for the X values, which is the horizontal axis, I'm going to select my task start dates. For the Y values, I'm going to select my vertical position, and here's where that's going to start to become more visible what we're talking about there. Say OK to that, OK. And what you can see now is we have a chart that has the start dates of my tasks on it. So the dates along the horizontal axis, and then that vertical position says where I want that task to lie vertically on my chart. I'm going to add another piece, and that is I'm going to go up here to Chart Tools, and I'm going to say Design. I'm going to say Add a Chart Element. And the chart element I'm going to add is error bars. I'm going to say More Error Bar Options. And what comes up is error bars for each of those 4 points on our chart. Now, error bars are a way that Excel can statistically analyze your data series, and it can calculate these values for you. But we don't have to accept what Excel has decided for these error bars. We can set those to be whatever value we want. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to get rid of these vertical error bars because they're not going to be, I'm not going to use them. And I'm going to do that by removing the little cap on the error bar and also setting its value, instead of the default to 1, I'm going to set it to 0. And by doing that, my vertical error bars are gone. And then up here at the top under error bar options, I'm going to say, instead of the Y error bars that I just made 0, I'm going to set the X values. I'm only interested in the plus values, that is the error bars that are to the right of my start date, because I'm going to use those to set the duration of these tasks. So I'm going to select this plus option. I'm going to take that little cap off again. And then again, instead of the default value that is set to 1 by Excel, I'm going to set a custom value, specify that value, positive error value here. I'm going to set that to be my task durations. Say OK to that. And you can see now I've got a start date and I've got a duration. And I'm going to tidy this up, make it a little bit more clear by formatting those error bars. So right now it's just a straight blank line. Let's change the color to a nice pastel blue. And we're going to set the width of that to be 10 points. And the other thing we can do is we can put arrowheads on it. So I'm going to select this arrowhead here and maybe make that a bit smaller because that's awfully big. And now you can definitely see a Gantt timeline chart forming here. I'm going to go back up to my chart tools and I'm going to add a chart element. And this time I'm going to add data labels. I'm going to add those to the right of the start date. And so what Excel has defaulted to is, again, those vertical positions, or where we are on the vertical axis. But we, again, can deviate from the default. And I'm going to come over here to this little icon here, and I'm going to say, instead of those Y values, I want to pick a value from my cells. So I'm going to select that data range to be my task durations. No, I'm sorry, my task names over here. And say OK to that. And now you can see I've got my task names associated with each of those 4 tasks there. And just to make that stand out, I'm going to hit Control B to make it a little more bolder. And I'm going to uncheck those options for the Y values and the leader lines. And now you can definitely clearly see a timeline. Just to do a little bit of housekeeping, I'm going to take those little markers and I'm going to format those selecting the format icon here, and I'm going to select the marker, and I'm going to make them non-visible by removing the line and then also removing the fill. And now I got a nice clean start to my tasks. A little bit more housekeeping here. These horizontal grid lines, let's get rid of those. I don't think they're very helpful for us. And also these this vertical axis right here, don't really need that. Nobody is concerned about your vertical position as a number, so we'll get rid of that. Down here in the horizontal axis, I'm going to format that. So over here in the left format axis, select this icon right here, axis options, and for my start date, I'm going to pick 3 Feb, which is the start date of my first task over here. It also happens to be a Monday. And I'm going to set the duration between those grid lines to be 7. And the reason that is now all these vertical lines represent a Monday. So here's our dates down at the bottom, vertical lines kind of showing where each of these tasks lie. And you can see that Gantt chart has definitely taken form now. I ran through that pretty quickly, but I'd like to go over it one more time. And so what I'm going to do is I'm going to add a second data series. So I'm going to right click on my chart, say select data. I'm going to run through this one a little bit more quicker. I'm going to add a data series. Let's call it phase 2 of our project. My X values are going to be based on my task start dates. My Y values are going to be set to the vertical position of that second set of data. Say OK to that. OK. And now I've added 3 new tasks here. Just like before, we're going to add some error bars. So I'm going to add a chart element, error bars, more error bar options. We don't like the defaults that Excel has come up with, so let's make some changes there. And we're going to go with no cap on the vertical error bars and set the value to 0, and in that way they're invisible. And then I'm going to select the X error bars, so these are my horizontal bars. I'm only interested in values to the right of my start date. Take that little cap off again, and we're going to set the value to be a custom value again, specify the value to be my task durations over here. Say OK. Do a little bit of formatting of those error bars. This time we're going to select maybe a pastel yellow. Like before, we'll make them 10 points wide. Add an arrowhead to the end, make it a bit smaller. And you can see this time this data series has defaulted with labels, and that's because I put labels on my previous data series. So I'm going to select those and format them and say I'm interested in my own values that I've created, and I'm going to set those to be my task names again. Say OK to that. Get rid of those Y values. We don't need those. Control B to bold those, make them consistent with our previous data series. And then finally, we're going to make these markers invisible by selecting no line and no fill. And there you've got it. A quick, in about 5-10 minutes, created a task chart, an Excel Gantt chart, using a scatter diagram and error bars. Created 2 series here, and I hope that everyone found that helpful.